Okay, everything we need to know about To Kill a Mockingbird Chapter 21. Now that you've finished Chapter 1, we can talk through it. This chapter picks up where 20 left off right when Calpurnia was walking to the front of the courtroom. The judge notices her and she asks him if she can give Atticus a note that is not related to the trial. Atticus opens it and reads it, then tells the judge it's from his sister and that his kids have been missing since noon. Mr. Underwood informs him that they've been up in the colored balcony since 1:18 p.m. As a reporter, he caught these details. Atticus calls them down and meets them with Calpurnia, who looks very annoyed at the bottom of the stairs. Now Jem is excited and asks, haven't they won the case? Atticus replies he doesn't know and asks them to go home with Calpurnia for supper and then to stay there. Jem begs to come back for the verdict. Atticus, saying he believes the verdict will be quick, tells him to go home, eat slow, and then he can come back. Jem asks if Atticus thinks that they'll acquit Tom that quick, which means find him not guilty, but Atticus does not say anything. Calpurnia lectures them all the way home and doesn't want to hear anything about the trial. Jem is not bothered by her anger. She lets Dill stay for dinner as long as he goes and tells Miss Rachel or Aunt Rachel to Dill that she's been worried about him as well, and she needs to know he's back. Aunt Alexandra is horrified about where they've been, but she doesn't say a word through dinner, just looks kind of sad at her plate, while Calpurnia mutters in anger the whole time. The kids get back in court in an hour and nothing has changed. Reverend Sykes has saved their seats, and he tells them that the jury has been gone about a half an hour and nothing much has changed. Most people are in the courthouse still waiting. Judge Taylor comes back and sits down. Jem says he can't imagine any jury would find Tom guilty. Reverend Sykes is more cautious, saying he's never seen a jury rule for a black person over a white. Jem doesn't agree in this case and reviews the evidence, which makes Reverend Sykes uneasy because they're talking about these kinds of details in front of Scout. But Jem assures him that she's too young to understand, which makes Scout not happy because he's being condescending to her again. Everyone is still sitting there at 11 o'clock at night, which means the jury has been out over 3 hours. Jem is happy that it's taking so long, but Scout starts to feel a cold tension from waiting, and a bad feeling starts forming in her mind. She compares it to the night watching Miss Maudie's house on fire before it collapsed, and the evening when everything was super quiet and still as they were waiting for the mad dog to come down the street for Atticus to shoot. Mr. Tate comes in and talks to Atticus, then goes and brings back Tom Robinson. The jury comes in and sits down. Scout, being a child of a lawyer, knows a jury doesn't look at a defendant that they've found guilty, and none of them look at Tom. She observes that it's kind of like Atticus walking into the street with his gun to kill the rabid dog and pull the trigger, but knowing the gun was empty. A paper is handed to the judge, and he reads the verdict one juror at a time. All the votes are guilty. Jem is tense, flinching every time guilty is read. Scout sees Atticus pack up and go and whisper to Tom before leaving the courtroom down the middle aisle. Reverend Sykes gets her attention, and she sees that all the African Americans are standing up around her as Atticus walks by and leaves the courtroom. The Reverend tells her to stand up because her father is passing by. So what do we take from this chapter? It's a pretty quick chapter. We see that Atticus finally sees and knows that his kids have been there the whole time, so he allows them to come back for the verdict. We also see how exhausted Atticus is when he talks to them. The main purpose of this chapter is to deliver the verdict. Through Jem, the eyes of a naive child, we see the case as it should be, that Tom is innocent and should be let go. Reverend Sykes, older and living in this environment his whole life, knows the bitter truth of the times, that white will trump over black. For Jem, the jury taking so long is a good sign that the verdict will be not guilty. Now, it is a good sign, but not for the reason Jem believes. It's incredible that at this day and age, in that day and age, during that climate, that the verdict was not quickly returned as guilty. They actually talked and debated over it for 3 hours. But in the end, we find the verdict is not surprising in a racist climate where color clouds conscience, hate hampers hope, and race rends right. You see what I did there as an English teacher? The chapter concludes with a show of appreciation and respect from the black community. They are aware of the stand and effort and risk that Atticus has taken to defend Tom, so they stand up to pay tribute to him. It's a touching show of hope and encouragement despite the verdict of the case. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the comment box down below.